We are live. Over to you, Bruno.
Uh, he- Hello, this is Bruno LARVOL, and this is a weekly podcast called LARVOL and Friend, where we invite someone related to our company, sometimes related directly, like today, our VP of product, and sometimes not so related. Sometimes we interview an artist or an expert in NFT or an expert in the metaverse, which of course are topics of interest to us. LARVOL is a SaaS company, software as a service, supporting the healthcare industry, and in particular, the pharmaceutical industry. We sell software and data for various functions in the pharmaceutical industry, from medical affairs to competitive intelligence, R&D, commercial functions as well. Uh, Today, we are going to talk with an executive at LARVOL, with whom I worked for, I want to say, 15 years. Sreedhar, is that right?
Yes, but I think that's right. Yeah.
That's right. There's a story behind it that I'll get to in a second. But about 15 years. And I want to start by saying that one of the uh, great joy of building a company, maybe in a different way, in our case, without any investor, is that we can build long-term relationships. And we've been able to build terrific relationship with people like Sreedhar. Some others have been with us even longer, 17 years for another executive. And sometimes I think, and I mentioned Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, who together are 180 years old, right? Charlie Munger is 96, I believe, and they're still working together. And so I know in started, especially venture-backed business, the average tenure is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know. Probably 2 years. 1 year to vest your option, 1 year to look for another job, essentially. But the joy of compounding relationships for a long period of time is a joy and a source of great uh, power as a business that I appreciate. I'm very grateful for. So I just want to say a few things about how I first met Sreedhar, and then I will ask him to tell us about his journey, which has been a very interesting one with a lot of turns. And one of the lessons for me and maybe for the audience when you think about our career is that we have to be open to turns that maybe we did not plan for, we did not expect. And a lot of interesting things happen when we are agile and flexible in the direction of our career. So I'll start with a little story. Um, Actually, before that, I want to say a full hello to Sreedhar, who is based in Hyderabad. Are you in Hyderabad right now, Sreedhar?
Yes, Bruno, that's right. I'm in Hyderabad, India.
And I miss Hyderabad very much. I was going there every single year for many years, and we get to meet and spend time and go to Agra and Taj Mahal. I've been to Taj Mahal 7 times, and then of course with COVID, I stopped. I really hope that next year is the right year for me to renew my yearly trip to India. Uh, okay, so um, 15, 16 years ago, we had in the team a wonderful tiger. We call our associate tigers, whose name is Pallavi. And she was an analyst, a data analyst. And but somehow something very surprising happened, which is that she amazed me at how good she was at special technology project and strategic technology project. And so I started to give her more and more little projects like that. I said that's very interesting for an analyst. You do a lot of terrific strategic project for the CEO of the business. And then I said, well, let's talk live. Let's talk live. And I was surprised. She was a little reluctant to have live calls with me. And one day she came to me a little sheepishly and say, Bruno, I have to admit something to you. All of these special projects, it wasn't me doing it. It was my husband. And so Pallavi Reddy was delegating very nicely to her husband, Sreedhar Reddy. And so we talked about it. He said, well, let's make it legitimate. And so I at the time, Sreedhar was working for Deloitte. And he's going to tell us about it in a second. We met in San Francisco. We had lunch in San Francisco, and I said, well, instead of working through your wife, why don't you work directly with me? And so he left Deloitte and joined us formally 15 years ago, although I think he worked with us now about 16 years. So the story might have been a little bit sort of have a few variations on over the years, Sreedhar, but am I still in the zip code of correct in describing that origin story?
Bruno, I'm so amazed that you remember everything so well and so perfectly. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened somewhere in 2010, around 2010, um, that you started sending more and more work, and that's more of a technology work. And at some point, I had to step in because it's a bit beyond her reach, beyond Pallavi's reach, and she was like asking for my assistance. And it just so happened that I was ending up doing more of assistance, and I was ending up doing more of work. And at some point, she decided that it's better to break it and better to let you know about it directly. And I mean, we could have just continued that way for some more time. I don't know for how long, but definitely, she felt like it's good to let you know about it, and it's good to break the ice, and it's good to see how we take it. And we at that point decided that maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but it's good for a company. LARVOL is a company. It's good for us to kind of keep it transparent, and that's how it really worked. And then I took a break and I approached you and I said like, Bruno, I'm interested in joining, and I want to see how I can fit in your organization. And I don't have any pharma background. I don't have. I have life sciences background, but I don't have any deep knowledge about pharma field. And I am more of a consultant. I'm a more of a technology consultant. I'm more of into design, and I'm more of into training. So I really don't know where I fit in, but I just can know that there is something that will make us work together, and that's where I really question. And I would say, I would thank you for like giving that opportunity and saying that despite what all happened, definitely I'm sure you're a bit unhappy at that point, but you welcomed and you said, let's continue, let's try to see how it goes. And we said, let's give it some time. Let's not kind of announce it. So we gave it some time. We worked on some of the kind of new projects, new strategic directions, and that's how this relation kept growing over the period of years.
Yeah. That's a wonderful origin story. I'm so grateful that through Pallavi we got to work together, and then Pallavi left and worked for another company and had a very successful career of her own. Uh, what that makes me think is a general topic, which is always tricky in some ways, which is that in a company, especially in a small company, we are 150 people, so I guess small still. Uh, should you have multiple people from the same family? Uh, and so, for example, my wife is working for the company, and she's giving me a lot of advice. Sometimes it's solicited. I would leave it at that. Uh, but you could imagine how I could not fire my wife. So my point is what? My point is that personal relationships have different rules than professional relationships. It doesn't mean you cannot build great friendship with people you're working with, but it's harder to go the other way. Is to be a friend with someone, a deep personal friend, or be in a relationship in a family, let's say, and then work with that person professionally. Some people have been successful doing it, I guess, right? They are family businesses, I guess, the Trump family, I guess, many families, but it's tricky. And so early on, I decided, with a notable exception of my wife, not to um, not to have two people from the same family working for LARVOL, and that's not easy. Sometimes it's tempting to break the rule. And then Aviva Friedman reminds me, Bruno, we if you break a principle, there's an exception, right? And from then on, it's going to be harder and harder to keep it. So it's been an interesting principle to keep in mind. I'm glad we have it, but I want to acknowledge it's not always easy to keep it. Um, okay. So can you still hear me, Sreedhar?
I can hear you,
Yeah.
Bruno. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Uh,
yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, of course, I may have slightly different view, Bruno, in terms of people from same family working in a company, and I, I, I do, of course, as I mentioned, I come from a consulting background, and I do see both wife and husband working in the same company, and at times in the same department, and also at times reporting to each other. I know it sounds a bit uh, tricky when you're reporting or your wife is reporting to you or the other way, but I mean, I feel as long as it's managed professionally, Bruno, and as long as the lines are clear, I don't see it as a challenge or a kind of issue. It's a bit like working from home. When you're working from home, the lines between the personal and professional life kind of gets blurred. It's not it's not anymore work-life balance. So we tend to use the term work-life balance, saying that, oh, we need to define your working hours and you need to define your personal hours and you need to balance between both of them. I would say no, there is nothing like trying to balance between work and life. It's about blurring the lines, and it's how to kind of take advantage of that blurriness. It may work for some, it may not work for some. For some people, it may add a bit of more stress, because when you don't have that clearly defined lines, you may end up mixing things, and you may end up not managing properly. But over a period of last 10, 12 years, I feel like you should not speak about work-life balance, and it's more of the blurriness between work life and personal life, and it's up to you as an individual how to balance, and not everyone may be good at that.
One point on work-life balance. Um, so my position on this is that um, work-life balance is extremely important, but extremely subjective to each person. You can think about Elon Musk. What kind of work-life balance does he want? Is right for him, right? Versus someone else. So all of us have our own definition of what's right for us, and sometimes it changes too. By the way, right? Um, and I think that organization needs to be very understanding, attuned, flexible to everybody's particular life circumstances, and so this is why, especially in virtual environment, things are different because people, the amount of time people spend on work uh, is very variable. It depends on everybody's circumstances, right? Some people can work part time. So the whole idea of part time, full time is even different. Some people can work 10, 20, 30. Even the number of hours is not very clear because the intensity of the work depends on various factors. What is an hour of work, for example, when you work from home? Do you work when you're doing the dishes while listening to a management presentation, right? Um, so the whole definition of work is when you're in the office and you can compartmentalize and you can measure. Um, I think doesn't exist anymore, and therefore we need to embrace the flexibility, the the understanding, and sometimes the blurriness of what does it mean to work, right? If I walk my dog, I don't have a dog. I wish I had a dog. If I walk my dog, when we're thinking, am I working? Well, if I'm listening to a call, am I working? If I'm right, so and some people want and need compartmentalization, and 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 so if they need that, they should have that. Other people don't want that. I don't want compartmentalization myself. For example, I like to, while I work, I like to do other things in parallel. I could do the dishes while I work, and I like doing that. I like to keep my hands busy when I talk, even with people. So I think the idea is each individual has different need, and the organization is there to provide flexibility to match the diversity of needs of a wonderful talent pool that we have globally now. And so you've seen the evolution of that model since the beginning, because from the beginning, in our case, we've been virtual, everybody working from home, 150 people. And then, of course, more recently, we went from using Yahoo Messenger to using Slack and Skype to using Zoom. And now we're in the metaverse, right? And I might be curious to get your view about how that transition, how you felt that transition in your own case and in your own colleagues as well.
Definitely, Pranav. And by the way, I still remember that the famous or the not so famous buzz sound on Yahoo, and then like when you want to kind of ping someone, you have to buzz the person, and then it was at times so irritating. If you remember during those older days, like
Yes.
you're, and I
Yes.
mean, yes, working remote, definitely there are certain limitations or there are certain challenges, Bruno. And one of it is the way you communicate or the way you collaborate with your colleagues in a virtual environment is somewhat different from the way you do in an actual physical office, wherein you get to see face to face, you get to interact. You can always go to the other person's desk and you could look around. You could quickly ask for a quick help or a tip or something. However, when you are doing working in a virtual environment, it can be a bit difficult. I mean, your colleagues, your teammates are spread out in different places. In this case, most of them in different time zones, at different locations. Uh, and I think as a company, though there is a bit of limitation, it also kind of gives an opportunity to explore new avenues or new technologies, which is something we at LARVOL kind of are able to do. So moving from Yahoo to Skype to using Slack to probably using Teams, and finally migrating to Metaverse. So at every step, we've been consciously looking into how can we minimize those limitations that are existent in remote environment. We have to uh, we have to accept and we have to agree that there are going to be limitations, whether it's a communication or whether it's a lack of human interaction. But our decisions during the course of years in terms of finding the right tools, I think it each of these takes us one step close to all of us being there in the same space, in the same room, though virtual. We are kind of reaching a stage where we can touch our colleague in a virtual space. We can feel all of us being there in the same room. And all of a sudden, you realize that, oh, we are all there together in one room and interacting, speaking to each other. Again, some of it is still evolving. We may realize that it's not close to the real life interaction, but things are changing a lot. The technology is evolving pretty rapidly, and very soon everything could look so real and so realistic. I would say that the blurriness between a physical world and a virtual world ultimately will be kind of becoming more and more less. That's how I look at the metaverse and our experiment with the metaverse.
Just before this interview, Sreedhar and
Hmm.
I had a meeting about one of the projects that we're working together at LARVOL. And that meeting was in a virtual office. So we both had a Quest VR headset on. And we met there. We actually even had two meetings back to back. And we shifted from one virtual office with Meta Zuckerberg Workroom, it's called, to a spatial meeting. There's a bit of an echo all of a sudden. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear
Uh,
you fine.
okay. And so that shows how things have changed from the days that you reminded me of Yahoo Messenger. And some of the people in the audience might remember Yahoo Messenger had that indeed buzz button. You would click on it, and then you had that obnoxious buzz that would tell people, I want to talk. That would scream, Sreedhar, I want to talk with you. It would be so obnoxious. I'm a little bit ashamed that I would push that button to call people. And of course, now it's a different environment, and we direct message each other on Team. We shifted from Slack to Team, saved $20,000 a year. Although I have to tell you, and I know Sreedhar, you worked on that transition, and I do miss. I mean, I'm glad we saved $20,000, but I do miss Slack and the interaction and the fun and all of the emoticon um, and it's certainly it's a little less fun and less engaging, but it I'm sure it has pluses as well, the ability to do direct video and various things. Um, so we're now a team shop in terms of our platform for messaging.
Yeah, and at maybe some point to know, we may fully transition to metaverse, as I said, and then we'll forget Teams and everything happens in metaverse. And then again, the technology, the devices, everything could evolve over a period of time that you no longer need to carry a big headset like the way we are doing, as you keep saying that. It could be so slim, it could be so sleek that you don't even feel like you need to carry a headset all the time when you are joining the space. So
Yeah.
I feel maybe 2 years, 3 years, we don't know, but I'm very confident. Like if you look at, I mean, if you look at it after 1 year, things might have evolved a lot. It may not be evident now, but looking at the way the companies are investing in metaverse, looking at the way the banks and everything are trying to build their own virtual spaces in metaverse. Uh, I'm sure, like in future, probably you'll end up doing all your transactions, your banking requirements, everything through metaverse. I don't know how it works now. Maybe it could sound like a bit of science fiction now, but imagine wearing your headset, getting access to your bank, and getting going around, and probably I don't know. I mean, there are certain online transactions like for internet banking things that you could do. You could apply for a loan, you could apply for a card, you could apply probably uh, for, for for a deposit. I mean, there are things that are possible. Yeah, not everything, but a lot of things that could be possible that are not possible today.
In 6 minutes, by the way, after this call, I've got another meeting in the metaverse. So essentially, this podcast is my break from the metaverse in 4 meetings in a row. Only one of them is not actually in a metaverse environment. Now, the thing I always tell people is that the metaverse is not easy yet. It's still very much like in 1995 internet style. It's not. But as you said, with headset getting lighter and more functionality, easier to communicate, better connectivity is going to be pretty impressive. As you know, Sridhar, at the end of each of these Larval and Friend podcasts, we ask the guest to give a takeaway, to have a phrase, a sentence, a recommendation that they can share with the audience. And so you don't need to say it yet. We'll keep it for the last minute, but start thinking about what that topic will be. Uh, there's so much to talk about, but I have one other thing I want to ask you about in the next few minutes. Uh, and it has to do with the turns of your career, how you started doing, you did some training, right? You were a trainer in the corporate world, a designer. You have some design training, like in a way, like Steve Jobs, right? He was actually a designer. Calligraphy, like font design was his college, one of his college focus, and then did something very different. But each stage, you use what you learn and what you liked in the previous step, and you apply it in sometimes unexpected ways. So my question to you is, did you expect the career path you had and all the successes, but the turn and twist that you went through? What was your biggest surprise, I guess, in how your career has developed so far? And there's still many years ahead, by the way. Remember Charlie Munger, 96, on stage in Omaha next to Warren Buffett a few days ago.
Right. I like the way you put it, Bruno. I mean, there people look at planning career in different ways, and each of us has our own style of what it means. Like some of us say that uh, down the lane after 5 years, I want to do this, or I want to become this, or maybe after 10 years, I want to do these things. Uh, in my case, frankly speaking, I never really planned ahead saying that this is what I want to be after 10 years, or this is what I want to do when I get to like 15 years. I never did that. I kind of, frankly speaking, just kept accepting whatever came and whatever looked interesting for me. And at times in this journey, I did accept certain things that are completely new for me. And yeah, I did use some of my previous experience, but I took a total, it was a total deviation or shift from what I was doing. As you mentioned, I started my career as a designer. I spent a couple of my initial years in designing, learning 3D Studio Max to Flash to Director and a lot of other courses. And then I spent another 2 years as a faculty teaching students about design and other things. It was a pretty good experience. A lot of things learned, especially it kind of helps you to be more patient when you're into design, and that ultimately help me to learn my PowerPoint skills. There are days where I used to spend hours together working on a PowerPoint presentation, working on those minor things like font alignment or font spacing that nobody would actually notice it. Uh, but still it end up gives a bit of satisfaction when you see that you're putting in your heart and soul into that. From there I moved on to training. I did a bit of work in building the training courses for schools and colleges, and from there I ventured into a corporate world, a true corporate world, being a consultant and working for about 3.5 to 4 years as a software consultant, more of a training consultant rather than a software consultant, I would say. Working with very big organizations, even some of the big pharma customers, and dealing with global large scale ERP implementation projects that are always challenging, that always have a lot of pressure because once you go live, you can't go back. So working on those kind of projects is always risky, but it also helps you to learn a whole lot of things when you are there in these kind of projects.
For sure, learning is essential for everybody, and that's a constant in business. As a business and as professional, if you cannot continuously learn, it's going to be harder and harder. And so, learning whatever it is so important, obviously. So now is the time, Sreedhar, for the takeaway. And again, I enjoyed that interview, like I enjoyed working with you over the years, and I hope we'll do a second interview later on, talking about maybe other things, because there's a lot of things we could talk about from your profile and
Definitely.
your journey. So what's your takeaway? And then we'll wrap it up.
So this is my takeaway point. Probably this is not exactly my own points, something that I borrowed and something that I copied, but I kind of believe in this. So it doesn't matter whether it is to cook or to be a gardener, but something in which you have to put in your mind and heart. That what ultimately counts. And I feel that's exactly what we are all doing to know that whatever we are doing in, whether one day I may be working on a client presentation or a customer presentation, or the other day I'm configuring an outlook for a colleague. It doesn't matter whether it's a big or small, but when you put in your heart and your mind, that's when you'll be really efficient and without being becoming brutal, I would say. Yeah, I'll stop there, Bruno.
Yeah, wonderful takeaway. Thank you, Sreedhar. Thank you all. Go Tigers. Bye.
Thank you so much, Bruno, for having me. Bye.